conspiracy theories about assassination attempts, but I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I got to ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show.
So White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt announced that the Associated Press has been banned from the Oval Office for not honoring the recent renaming of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
The controversy began with a question so absurd it almost sounded like a parody. On national television, The View floated a claim about supposed plots involving Elon Musk and Donald Trump, an insinuation so wild it bordered on the conspiratorial. When Karoline Leavitt, newly appointed White House press secretary, was asked about it, she dismissed the notion outright. Her response was direct, calm, and unequivocal: absolutely not. But what stood out more than the bizarre question itself was the hypocrisy underlying it. For years, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and their co-hosts had labeled conservatives as conspiracy theorists, while they themselves promoted claims that often failed to hold up under scrutiny. They compared Trump to dictators, mocked his supporters, and consistently framed him in the worst possible light. Yet here they were, indulging in the same behavior they had long condemned. The episode could have been dismissed as just another inflammatory television moment, but this time, it didn't fade into the background. Instead, it sparked something far larger. Karoline Leavitt, rather than brushing off the treatment she endured, chose to fight back. What began as a heated TV segment snowballed into one of the most staggering lawsuits in entertainment history, an $800 million legal battle that put ABC and The View squarely in the crosshairs.
Karoline Leavitt. The left pretends to be a champion of women until they find one who is a conservative. Once that happens, they love nothing more than tearing down women with the most petty and vacuous of insults. Leavitt appears to be a fierce operator, but she's also 27 and arguably quite glamorous. So of course, the kind and progressive voices at The View reacted to her appointment like this.
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
When Leavitt first announced the lawsuit, many in the media assumed it was just another headline grabber. The View had weathered countless controversies before. Over the years, co-hosts had sparred with politicians, celebrities, and even each other. Producers and executives assumed this situation would blow over in the same way. But they were wrong. Instead of folding under the weight of the criticism, Leavitt doubled down. She declared boldly that her case was moving forward exactly as planned, leaving no room for speculation. Part of what fueled her determination was the treatment she received as a conservative woman. The very voices who often preached about female empowerment had mocked her looks, her youth, and her qualifications the moment she stepped onto the stage. Joy Behar had cracked dismissive jokes, reducing her to a punchline. Whoopi Goldberg sneered that her position was owed to wokeness.
Young lady this is her first job, I would like her to do a little homework. Because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason, because black people couldn't get into colleges. So, the White House Correspondents Association released a statement, and it said the White House cannot dictate how news organizations report the news, nor should it penalize working journalists because it is unhappy with their editors' decisions. And the AP is signaling legal action, calling this a violation of their First Amendment rights. Now,
while Sunny Hostin accused her of benefiting from privilege rather than merit. What was framed as a discussion quickly devolved into ridicule, with the panel treating her less like a guest and more like a target. Leavitt, however, didn't react the way they expected. She smiled politely, answered their questions with composure, and kept her calm. But behind that composure, she was taking notes. Every sarcastic jab, every loaded question, every sneer. By the time she walked off stage, she wasn't humiliated. She was preparing for battle. What followed behind the scenes was methodical. Leavitt and her legal team began gathering everything they could find: video footage, transcripts, and even leaked producer notes. Those notes revealed something stunning. Her appearance had been orchestrated not as an interview, but as an ambush. Instructions like, "Let Joy go in first," "She'll rattle her early," and "Mention Trump midway, see if she cracks," showed a premeditated effort to destabilize her. This wasn't about conversation. It was about humiliation.
You know that you're walking into hostile territory, right?
Certainly do. And look, I think I'm well prepared for that. And I'm incredibly honored that President Trump has instilled confidence in me to speak on his behalf behind the White House podium. It's been an honor to have a front row seat to the greatest political comeback in history. And as you mentioned in your monologue, Sean, President Trump is putting together a brilliant cabinet of fantastic America First fighters, from Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who are going to cut the waste out of our federal bureaucracy, to Susie Wiles, who is going to serve as the first female chief of staff in history. Take that, Mark Cuban, to Tom Homan. No one better to secure the border.
When ABC's executives first saw the lawsuit, they reportedly expected a few pages of grievances. Instead, they were met with over 100 pages of evidence, clips, screenshots, internal communications, and sworn statements. Panic spread instantly. Meetings were called. Lawyers were flown in. Public relations teams scrambled to draft statements, but executives quickly realized that anything they said could worsen their position in court. The discovery process loomed like a storm cloud. Emails, texts, rehearsal scripts, all of it could be demanded and made public. One leaked memo titled "How to Throw Karoline Off Script" sent shockwaves through the upper levels of ABC. What they had dismissed as routine television banter was now documented as deliberate, coordinated humiliation. Tensions boiled over among the hosts themselves. Whoopi Goldberg, long seen as the dominant voice on the panel, exploded with fury when she learned ABC executives were even considering settlement talks. She reportedly slammed her mug on the table and shouted that the show had survived worse before. Joy Behar, equally defiant, accused the network of disloyalty, pointing out that she had carried The View for decades. Sunny Hostin, however, was the one voice of restraint. After reviewing the evidence, she warned that if the case went to trial, their credibility, not just their jobs, would be on the line.
We had him go to the Oval Office yesterday, where I think he provided great answers. He was speaking in layman's terms, speaking common sense to all of you in the media, but also to Americans at home. But I would say especially to all of you in the media, because I think it's a real fallacy that there's this alleged lack of transparency when it comes to Doge. President Trump and Elon Musk have been incredibly transparent on what Doge is doing. There is an X account with the Doge handle. They are tweeting out what they are doing on a daily basis. They have a website where they are posting the receipts of the contracts that they are reviewing and the payments that they have stopped from going out the door. The secretaries of our departments have stopped from going out the door.
The atmosphere on The View changed almost overnight. Gone was the trademark snark. In its place, stiff, carefully measured words filled the air. Whoopi opened episodes in a softened tone, trying to frame the show as a platform for honest dialogue rather than hostility. Joy attempted an awkward admission that maybe things had gone too far. Sunny delivered a scripted plea for finding another way to resolve the situation. But viewers weren't convinced. The contrast between their mocking treatment of Leavitt and their sudden politeness was glaring. Social media erupted with side-by-side clips, painting the hosts as hypocrites scrambling to save face. Memes, TikToks, and viral posts mocked the panel relentlessly. One viral clip titled "The View Begs for Mercy," Karoline says Nope reached millions within hours. Memes depicted Whoopi hiding behind cue cards labeled "We didn't mean it," while Karoline stood tall with a folder marked $800 million lawsuit. Another cartoon showed Joy sweating in a courtroom sketch as a gavel slammed down with the word accountability. The hashtag Karoline wins trended across platforms, fueling the narrative that Leavitt was standing up not just for herself, but for all conservatives who felt dismissed by mainstream media.
Unequivocally clear about that. And watching this clip, I couldn't help but think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up. They just paid $15 million to President Trump's future library. That's a great thing for the American.
The silence from Leavitt herself only amplified her power. She didn't post online, didn't give press statements, didn't respond to the frenzy. Her absence created a vacuum that only highlighted the desperation of ABC and The View. Every time the network attempted to spin the story, her refusal to engage made them look weaker. Behind the scenes, advertisers grew skittish. Sponsorships were pulled. Campaigns were suspended. Internal emails leaked warning of reputational collapse. Executives debated extreme measures, including the possibility of canceling The View altogether. Some argued for replacing the entire cast, while others floated spin-offs to salvage the time slot.
Crazy questions from the White House podium. How do you plan to deal with it?
Yes, I absolutely will. I feel prepared to do that. I've been facing the media now, speaking on behalf of President Trump on the campaign trail for the past couple of years, and we are expecting the media to be hostile. However, Kaylee, if you do talk to a lot of these reporters off the record, they will tell you they look forward to more press transparency and access. And while we will expose the fake news when they are fake, we will hold them accountable for their lies and smears of President Trump.
Through it all, Leavitt's legal team emphasized that this wasn't about the payout. It was about principle. That message resonated deeply with audiences already weary of media arrogance. Commentators began speculating that if she succeeded, it could mark a turning point where networks were forced to take accountability for smear tactics and staged ambushes. The case grew stronger by the day. Her lawyers didn't stop at one episode. They began combing through seasons of the show, cataloging every moment of mockery aimed at conservative women. The goal wasn't just compensation, it was precedent. For years, guests had walked into the View studio expecting hostility. Now, there was a chance to prove that the hostility wasn't spontaneous, but deliberately designed.
Behavior of Democrats last night was completely disgraceful and demonstrated how severely out of touch they are with the American public. It was the most shameful moment in the history of presidential addresses in that beautiful chamber. In what was supposed to be a unifying moment for our country, Democrat members of Congress instead screamed at the President of the United States, who was just overwhelmingly reelected by their constituents, walked out of the chamber, and worst of all, they disrespected the American.
As the legal war dragged on, the pressure inside ABC intensified. Executives turned on producers, producers turned on assistants, and hosts lashed out in private meetings. The once proud flagship of daytime television had become its greatest liability. And still, Leavitt didn't waver. Her team declared firmly there would be no settlement. The lawsuit would continue. Public sympathy swung heavily in her favor. She became a symbol of defiance, a young woman standing against a media giant. Supporters cast her not just as a political figure, but as a cultural one, the conservative woman who refused to be mocked into silence. Social media lit up with comparisons of The View sinking like the Titanic, while Leavitt calmly rode away in a lifeboat labeled $800 million lawsuit. Executives at ABC could see what was coming: reputational collapse, advertiser abandonment, and a cultural reckoning they hadn't prepared for. For years, The View had thrived on its ability to mock, provoke, and belittle guests without consequence. But now, a 27-year-old press secretary had turned that formula against them. The storm hasn't passed yet, but one thing is undeniable: Karoline Leavitt has refused to stop, refused to bow, and in doing so, has shaken the foundation of daytime television. What began as an ambush on live TV transformed into a cultural moment, exposing cracks in a media empire. Whether or not she ultimately wins in court, she has already shifted the balance of power. And that is something The View and ABC will never forget.